It was a Thursday morning like any other. The sun had just begun to shine through the trees, casting long shadows over my porch. I was sitting there, enjoying a hot cup of coffee, my laptop open in front of me. I've got a lot of work these days, so I'd taken this moment to catch up on some case notes on an encrypted tablet, checking out some federal files while the world around me seemed to sleep in peace. My neighborhood, small, quiet, and usually uneventful, wasn't the kind of place where anything crazy would happen. Or at least, I thought it wasn't. But then, my peaceful morning took a sharp turn, and everything changed in the blink of an eye. I was scrolling through my tablet, barely paying attention to anything else around me, when I heard the unmistakable sound of an engine revving. I glanced up just in time to see a black SUV pull up to my driveway. It didn't have any license plates, nothing that seemed remotely legal. My mind clicked into gear. In the kind of neighborhood I live in, you notice those little details. And as the vehicle rolled to a stop, something about it didn't sit right. I squinted a little, trying to see what kind of trouble I was about to walk into. 3 men got out of the SUV. Their uniforms were strange: quilted cargo pants, cheap polo shirts, and, of course, sunglasses. Even though it was just past 8 in the morning, these guys were wearing sunglasses like they were about to jump into some action flick. Not the kind of people you expect to see rolling through a quiet suburban neighborhood. But the strangest part was the sign on the side of the SUV. It read, in bold, official-looking letters, HOA Enforcement Unit. Now, I've lived in this neighborhood for years, and I know every single detail about it: what color your fence can be, how high your grass can grow, and when to trim your bushes. HOA rules can be a pain, sure, but a whole enforcement unit? That's where it started getting weird. We don't have an HOA police force. One of the men, the leader of the group, started walking toward my house with a clipboard in his hand. He looked confident, almost like he thought he was the sheriff or something, the kind of guy who struts like he's on top of the world. I wasn't having it. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my cool, watching them approach. The man who seemed to be in charge, let's call him Crew Cut, stepped right up to my porch. He barely even hesitated before starting his spiel. "Sir, you're in violation of HOA Code 7.3.2, unauthorized structural modification and surveillance placement." I couldn't help but laugh a little. I mean, really, surveillance? I live in a neighborhood where the most exciting thing that happens is someone putting a lawn chair out on their front lawn at the wrong angle. Surveillance was not on my list of activities. "Surveillance?" I asked, leaning forward in my chair, a little smirk playing on my face. Crew Cut pointed toward the cameras around my property, the high-definition facial recognition cameras that were set up as a security measure after a previous break-in attempt. Those cameras were clearly visible, nothing hidden about them. They were up for months now. "Those," he said with complete seriousness, like he had me dead to rights. I shook my head. "So, let me get this straight. You're here to accuse me of something because I have cameras on my property, in my own yard?" He nodded, clearly thinking he was on solid ground. "Exactly." I sat there for a moment, processing the absurdity of it all. Then I remembered something. My gaze drifted to the camera above the porch, one of the many security cameras I had on my property. It was always live, connected to a federal monitoring terminal. Not something I'd usually talk about, but it was definitely there. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I slowly stood up, maintaining my calm. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out my FBI badge holder. I wasn't going to make a scene, but these guys were pushing it, and I wasn't about to let them get away with it. "Let me see your ID," I said, my voice firm. "You're not going anywhere until I know who you really are." Crew Cut reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a badge. I glanced at it briefly. Laminated, cheap, obviously printed on a standard office printer. It looked like something a kid would make for a school play, not an actual law enforcement badge. I could barely hold back a chuckle. I raised an eyebrow. Nice try. You're not fooling anyone. One of the other men stepped forward, the one who looked like he wanted to pull something out of his holster. But he was too slow, though. My patience was running thin, and I wasn't about to let these jokers push me around in my own home. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my FBI badge holder, flipped it open, letting the light catch the seal. FBI Special Agent Marcus Hale, Counterintelligence Division, I said, making sure they heard every word. It was like the air shifted in an instant. The three of them froze. The confident front they'd been putting on disappeared. The man with the holster took a half step back, suddenly unsure of himself. "You're done," I told them calmly. "Here's the deal. You're going to put down your fake badges, your clipboards, your weapons, everything. You're going to get on the ground, hands behind your head. If you don't, things are going to get a lot worse for you." There was a moment of hesitation. They looked at each other, probably realizing they were way out of their league now, but they still didn't budge. That's when I hit the button on my comms, sending out a signal to my backup. "Sierra 4, this is Hale. Code E7, detained suspects in progress." Less than 2 minutes later, I heard the unmistakable roar of sirens. 2 blacked-out Suburbans and a local cruiser tore around the corner, skidding to a halt in front of my house. Fully equipped FBI agents poured out, moving with the kind of efficiency you only see in movies. The fake HOA enforcers tried to scatter, but they didn't get far. The agents swooped in like a hawk on its prey. Turns out, these guys weren't just a bunch of rogue HOA goons. They were hired by a former HOA board member, someone who didn't like me installing secure communication systems after a previous breach. These guys weren't certified, they weren't sanctioned, they weren't even close to being legal. They were just a fabricated militia acting under the guise of the HOA. The fake officers were arrested on multiple charges: impersonating law enforcement, unlawful detention, and trespassing on a protected intelligence property. And the former HOA board member? Well, he was under investigation for conspiracy and multiple violations of federal security statutes. And me? Well, I stayed on the porch, sipping my coffee, completely unfazed by the chaos happening right in front of me. Not a single step out of place. The fake officers were zip-tied and led away by the agents, but I just sat back and watched. A neighbor from across the street waved nervously, looking a little concerned. "Marcus, everything okay?" they called out, unsure of what they were seeing. I just waved back and smiled. Yeah, just a little HOA dispute. That's the thing about power. You don't have to flaunt it to use it. These guys tried to act like they were the authority, but when they ran into the wrong person, they didn't stand a chance. But what struck me the most was how easy it was for them to fake it. How easily people can disguise themselves as someone with power and just start pushing others around. But it made me think, how many people like that are out there? How many people use fake authority to control others, all while hiding behind a facade? Maybe this wasn't just about me. Maybe this was bigger than that. So, I ask you, how far do you think these fake enforcers would have gotten if they hadn't messed with the wrong person? Would they have been stopped if they had picked someone else? And what do you think about the way some people abuse their power? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever dealt with someone abusing authority in your life? How did you handle it? Let's talk about it. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this. Trust me, this is just the beginning.